I'm Adam Sandoval and welcome to my garage. Today we're going to be reviewing a bike you all have been asking me for, the brand new 2019 Indian Chieftain Dark Horse. I think it's important to talk to you all about my obligations in producing this review. I am in no way obligated by Indian or any other company to give you any information that I don't truly believe myself. The only obligation I have in this very review is to you, the audience. My missions, my riding, my channel is about community and about bikers, and I'm excited to be able to give you an honest, straightforward, unbiased opinion of this brand new 2019 Indian. For those of you that don't know, I have ridden many types of motorcycles over the year of several different brands. And my bagger cross-country experience is pretty diverse. I've gone coast to coast over 16 times and north to south over 12 in the last few years alone. All on a bagger, living off the bike, living off the road, doing true long distance riding. You can find all kinds of videos on my channels about these cross-country journeys. Now today, reviewing this bike, I wanted to wait until I put some real miles on it. I see a lot of reviews online about motorcycles and they take them for 100 or 200 miles, sometimes less, and then give a review. And to me as a consumer, that is not a qualified way to give a real in-depth review of a motorcycle. So while you all have been asking me for this review, I appreciate your patience. I wanted to wait until I was done with my last trip. I've had this bike now for just over 2 weeks, and I have put on over 4,000 miles on this motorcycle. And I feel now confident that I can tell you all my likes, dislikes, and thoughts about riding and potentially purchasing this very bike. The first thing I'd like to do is talk to you about my likes on this motorcycle. And one of the things I really do like is this 111 cubic inch engine that Indian has brought out. It is a very torquey engine from low RPMs up to probably about 4,000. That's your sweet spot. You're gonna wanna short shift this motorcycle. You don't wanna run it up into the 5,000 RPM. You're gonna lose all your torque and power at that point. But it does run very smooth. It seems very well balanced, and it gave me a very enjoyable, powerful ride. The next thing I really like about this motorcycle that stood out to me from the first second I put my leg over it was the handling. I will admit, after the last couple 100,000 miles being on one brand of motorcycle, it was very different to me. And to someone who doesn't have a ton of motorcycle experience, it could feel very tippy, like it's just gonna lay down on the concrete and fall over on you. But you soon realize that you've just experienced what a motorcycle should feel like. After a few miles and hitting a few curves, you learn that this motorcycle wants to lean into these curves, and you can trust it. And once you trust it, you have a ride like you can't believe. It really did handle very well, and we'll go into some of the reasons. I really think it's the frame and suspension that are giving you this feel. It's got to be the geometry of the frame and suspension, along with the type of products they use. They actually have a monoshock suspension in the rear, and it comes Fox from the factory. That's right, a Fox shock from the factory in the back of this motorcycle. And that, along with this frame, is just amazing. I don't know what it is or how they got the angles right. It just really hugged all those angles so well. It absolutely blew my mind. Another thing is the huge amount of travel in the rear suspension of this thing. It has over 4.5 inches of travel in the rear end, and that in itself makes a huge difference. I can see why so many motorcycles are going to this monoshock frame suspension system. Two of the other things I loved about this motorcycle, features that at first I have to admit sounded a little bit gimmicky, but on a 4,000 mile road trip, found out that I use them a lot. The first one's the windshield. It has a power windshield that goes up and down. Me being 6'2", this was a big factor. The original windshield that came on it was still a little bit small for me, even in the all the way up position. I got the next step up windshield offered by Indian, and it did very well. I was able to raise it up, cut that buffering on my helmet, and when I wanted more airflow in the hot temperatures, I was able to lower it down. It fed more air into the vents of my helmet and kept me cooler. I'll also say, when riding through the rain builds up on the front of your full face helmet. All I had to do was lower this windshield down. I'd get a blast of air to my helmet, it would clean the rain off my helmet, and I could lift it back up, and I was right back to a very well protected ride. Another thing I really liked is this keyed automatic locked saddlebags. Not only are these redesigned saddlebags super easy to get into, one hand, push button, lift up and down, makes it very simple, but they also, by the push of a button, you hear that? They actually lock by the push of a button. No more fumbling around with a little barrel key, bending down alongside your bike, trying to get it locked, figuring out which way to twist it. A simple push of the button here, or a push on the dash, I can lock and unlock my saddlebags very easily. When I had this buried inside my rain gear, this made it real easy at stops to get in and out of my saddlebags. A really quality feature. I also like the fact that it's a real key and not a barrel key. I think this makes life much, much easier. Another feature that really blew me away was the navigation entertainment system on this motorcycle. Not only are the speakers and the power ample, I don't feel the need to upgrade them in any way. They feel perfect right from the factory. But the infotainment system in itself is a beautiful thing. You can just simply hit this button here and you can have your actual navigation. Hit it again, it gives me a split screen. It can tell me my tire pressure, front and rear, when my next oil change is, the gear I'm in, my vehicle speed, my range, my RPMs, and guess what? It's touchscreen, so I can just swipe it like this. Now I can split between my navigation and my direction along with my music, or I could just keep going. Also our phone, our Bluetooth connectivity, you can hit this here. This breaks down all the different options I have. Back to my music, back to my connectivity, back to my GPS, all touchscreen, all very, very simple to use. Absolutely thrilled with this operating system. The next thing I want to talk to you about are the ride modes. Another thing that I thought might have been a little gimmicky, but absolutely is a real thing. Come on in here and take a look. You just swipe down that Indian and you see you've got options for ride modes, Tour, Standard, and Sport. By simply switching between these modes, it 100% changes the response level of this throttle. And I'm talking big time. I found Sport to be very, very responsive, torquey, twitchy. In the curves, it could be a ton of fun. When you got out and were doing a little bit longer of a ride, it became a little bit annoying. Every bump, every little movement of that throttle had the bike wanting to jump out from underneath you with very responsive throttle. By moving to Standard, it takes a little bit more away. By moving to Touring, you could move the throttle quite a bit without getting any type of jolting in the bike, and you could have much more of a controlled, smooth ride. I found myself wanting to ride in the Standard mode the most. That's where I spent most of my time. But when I wanted to get on it and rip through some canyons and through some mountains, I'd tap that Sport button and it completely gave an exhilarating feel. In the bike, I think it's the stance or the seat, I'm not really sure, but when I hit that, in that Sport mode, it just felt like that bike was so fast. It felt like it was the fastest bagger I've ever been on. The power wasn't there all the way through. It certainly wasn't the fastest bagger I've ever been on, but at the initial crack of that throttle, it sure enough could have fooled me. Another thing we should talk about is going to be the braking. If you're going to go fast, you got to stop the bike, and that's so important. Indian has really done a phenomenal job, and this is why this is under my likes comment, in their braking system. A dual caliper front brake along with the rear brakes stops this bike with ease. I had no problems at all stopping this bike in any situations, whether it was on corners, whether it was on straightaways. This bike handled and stopped very appropriately. Certainly enough braking to handle all the power that comes in this bike factory and probably any power you want to put to it. Another feature I want to talk about on my likes are the lights. Through the dark riding, the night riding, it did a great job illuminating the road well ahead of me. I felt completely safe running even at highway speeds at night. The headlights did a great job. And what's even cooler, in my opinion, come check this out. LED lighting front and rear from the factory. This is an option many other baggers are gonna make you pay good money to upgrade. And it's such an important feature. Being seen out there on the road is so important, y'all. You gotta be safe. And I have to say, this new 2019 Indian coming up with factory LEDs front and rear absolutely blew my mind and saved me some money right off the bat. Another thing I want to talk about are the matching aluminum rims. And the front rim actually comes in a 19-inch with the two-tone colors. I really did enjoy that rim. I just think it's a good look. And a lot of other bikes, that's something you're going to have to upgrade as well. And it's an expensive upgrade. So you're noticing a pattern here. A lot of the things that you're going to want to upgrade on a motorcycle are really coming with this motorcycle right from the factory. All right, moving down to the floorboards. I do have to say, I see a lot of companies going with these longer extended floorboards for aftermarket parts. Again, another thing Indian has brought to factory. It puts my size boot on there with plenty of room to spare. And as we know, the more room you have to move your foot, the less tired you get on that long road. So I'm really enjoying these very large, elongated floorboards, along with the shocking absorbent ability they have. You can see the movement in it right there. Just made for a really comfortable ride. I never had any type of fatigue in my feet or my knees or ankles. I always felt like I had plenty of places to set my foot. Another thing let's talk about is this new body. I really do like what Indian has done with this new body. I've heard some controversy online, but I have to tell you genuinely, I like the look of it. I think that it keeps with some traditional motorcycling looks that I've come accustomed to, but adds some new sharp edges to it that really make it different and really stand out. This is just in my opinion. You know, these are types of things that are dealer's choice. I mean, what one person loves, another one hates. This is the beauty of having multiple motorcycles out there to choose from. But for me, I think what Indian has redone in redesigning this bike is perfect. It's right up my taste. What I'm going to show you here is from front to back, I'm going to walk you through. I love the fact that they took away the sweeping fender on the new Dark Horse. I love this more cut open. Let's see the wheel. Let's let the air through. Let's show off this big beautiful rim and this beautiful braking system. This is one thing I absolutely love, along with this nice cable they've got there. I definitely love the headdress on the front. I think this is an amazing piece. This really gives me a really unique look that I'm enjoying. The all blacked out aspects of the Dark Horse are obviously something that is right along my alley. This is probably one of the biggest things for me to make this bike something I would absolutely want to have in my garage, and it's the new front fairing. It has a very similar shape to other batwing fork mounted fairings, but is unique in its own way. Very sharp lines, very edgy lines, a big flat square nose, edged off with the Indian. And listen folks, I know it's dirty, okay, but I rode this thing. I'm not taking it and polishing it up for show. My motorcycles are riding motorcycles, and anybody who knows that washing them comes second to riding them. So, but I love the vent for the fairing. It comes up behind the windshield and over the dash. It hit me very nice, kept me cool. Overall, I do really enjoy the front look of this. I think it looks tough. I think it matches, if I had to say, it matches full fairing motorcycle with almost a Humvee look. That real flat, square, let's take care of some business attitude. Moving on down, I do always love the Indian logo. I think this is a logo that is nostalgic for me. It's something that really stands out. I've always enjoyed that logo. I think it's just really cool. So for me, that Indian logo on there is awesome. I just think the Indian name in itself is really just a cool name. I think the Indian legacy is one that I always want to see alive, and anybody who can come along and keep it alive is important. You know, I hear a lot of people out there say, oh, Polaris Indian, but what I think they don't realize is although Polaris did buy the name and they did relaunch the Indian brand, it is a completely separate design team, a completely separate plant, a completely separate organization from Polaris. It's not a Polaris motorcycle. You know, Twinkies and Bed Bath Beyond are owned by the same parent company, and I certainly wouldn't call my linens Twinkies or my Twinkies linens. This is a motorcycle. This is an Indian motorcycle made by a staff hired and working full-time to create the best in modern technology with an iconic name like Indian. So for all of you out there with the Polaris thing, Polaris is a great American company. They make cutting edge stuff. They are leading the industry in so many ways when it comes to on-road, off-road, and everything in between. These guys are geniuses in the motorsports, and frankly, their stock market shows it. So there would be no foul in calling it a Polaris, but it just simply is not. It's an Indian, and I think they're doing a phenomenal job. Moving back, having everything filled in here is very, very nice. I like the way it's all covered up. It's all hidden. It's not all shown. They actually have correct parts in place that fit together very nice. This is fit and finish, folks. This is making sure everything matches and it aligns and it's clean and it makes sense and it cuts down wind drag. It just makes it beautiful. Little Indian logos on top of here. Talking about the saddlebags, also completely redesigned. Look how flat and square this is compared to the old domed one they had before. I know they were going for a nostalgic look before, but I think that era is behind us, and this new squared off, aggressive stance looking bike is really what the future generations are gonna like. I really do enjoy it. Another thing is the tank and the dash. The tank is very nice. I like the way it's trimmed out with the leather. It meets the seat properly. It's got a beautiful teardrop tank. It's really a good looking tank. I enjoyed sitting behind this. and the dash has really grown on me. At first I wasn't sure about the dash, but after putting miles down, this is by far a superior configuration. It keeps the GPS nice and high, so you keep your eyes on the road and you're not looking down to find out your future directions. The next order of business is going to be the seat that I'm sitting on. Let me get off for you. In 4,000 miles, I found this seat to be very comfortable. It's a little dirty because, as I said, we do ride. I found it to be very comfortable though. For a factory seat, I was completely impressed, pleasantly surprised. This lumbar gave you sufficient support on your lower back to keep you going, although I would like to have a backrest, but it has a sleeve in it for it. The back seat is very flat and very thin, making it very easy to stack luggage on when you're traveling long distance, things like that. You don't have such a concave that things are wanting to fall off or shift. I found it to secure my luggage and hold my luggage great. It's not gonna be a professional touring quality seat. There are better seats out there you can get, but I would say this is a solid 500 mile a day seat and you won't notice any fatigue on your butt. The last thing I'm gonna talk to you about my really likes on this bike is going to be the exhaust. Sounds great for a factory exhaust. A lot of the exhausts I've been hearing as of late are very quiet, humming type exhausts. I found this exhaust from the factory to have a nice rumble to it. I really did enjoy it. It wasn't too loud, it wasn't too quiet, and it gave me a nice, deep, gritty feel when I laid on the throttle. Actually, why don't I go ahead and start it for you, and why don't you listen to it for yourself. We'll see how well the camera will pick it up. I think those are all a bunch of wonderful things about the Indian. A lot of things I really enjoy about it. Along with one other thing I didn't tell you, and that's the ride height. It's got a very low ride height, 25.5 inches of ride height, and that is going to be something that's really going to come into play for those shorter riders. I have a ton of people asking me what they should do if they're a shorter inseam, and I think this could be a perfect touring model for someone with a little bit shorter inseam. But now let's talk about some of the things that kind of struck me as a little odd, or things that I didn't really enjoy about it, things that maybe could be worked on in the future. Let's take a look at a few. So for the number one, I'm going to talk about some things on the controls that weren't my favorite. One, I don't really care for how smooth and just kind of plain the control clusters are. I think that everything else is done so nicely and so elegantly. Like, let's for instance take the top of this brake reservoir. Very nicely done, very nicely finished. I look at these controls and they seem kind of plasticky plain to me. I didn't really like that very much. Also over here, this is probably a bigger one for me over here, the blinker configuration. It's actually the push left, push it into stop, push right type blinker system all in one thumb. For me, I really enjoy having one blinker on either side. Turn right, turn left, push left. Trying to configure this thing with my thumb pushing and pulling, especially with gloves on, I found to be a little bit tedious. I didn't really enjoy that much of it. It kind of gave me a scooter type feel, if you will, like I was riding a scooter down in Key West around the block. This is one thing that I just really didn't love about the bike. Another thing that I think is probably comparable to other motorcycles of its class is the storage. Up here, I think it could have used a little bit bigger storage compartment if possible, but again, not complaining. It did work well. It does hold a phone. It does allow me to charge a phone, but a little bit more storage up there would have been a nice feature for me. Another thing I found rather inconvenient was actually fueling the bike, putting the fuel into the bike. You'll see here, this is the one side that you fill with. This side is just a dummy. But in order to get fuel into this cap, I have to, because of the way this dash is built, turn my handlebar sideways to expose it in order to get the fuel pump into it. A lot of times I like to park my bike with the handlebars straight. I just think it makes the bike look better. And when I get off my bike, I like to look at my bike and like the way it looks. So I, a lot of times, would always leave my handlebars straight. I'd get to the gas pump, I've had the thing, and unfortunately, as minute as it is, it's a little annoying to have to turn your handlebars like that just to put the gas into my bike. Just another little thing that, you know, I would have liked this to be back a little bit further, or somehow to move this dash in a little bit for it. But the two together just creates a little tricky fueling situation. Handlebars, another kind of setback for my personal taste, and this is pretty much on all factory touring motorcycles. They're just too low and too wide for me. I'd much rather have them up here. I just think it gives me a better stance. It's better on my shoulders, my neck, my back. Being down here is a little bit painful. I do have an injury to my shoulder and my neck that did keep me from doing long miles. I think if it would have been up here, it probably would have helped me out just a little bit. We probably could have shaved a couple days off our trip by being able to do more miles in a day. But nonetheless, this is something that I find in almost all cruisers. The handlebars are a little bit low and a little bit wide, to my personal taste. Another small thing that I kind of noticed that kind of threw me off right away is the actual lever on the brake shifter there. It's a knob, it's not a pad, it's not very big. It can make it kind of funny to find it until you get used to it. It's a little bit different. I like to have a big old pad up there I can put my foot on good. Now that's something that's very simple and you can modify yourself for very inexpensive, but it would have been nice if it came with a nice brake pad right from the factory. One of the last things was the crash bars, or the engine guards as a lot of people call them. No highway pegs on them. And I think most of these motorcycles don't come with highway pegs, but I can tell you after a 4,000 mile road trip, getting my, listen, I'm using my signature ASR highway pegs. If you haven't seen them, let me show you real quick. There they are, my signature ASR highway pegs. These are something that are certainly going to be on my bike before my next road trip. They are wonderful mini boards and give you even more positions to put your front feet. And that is something that if you're going to have a true touring bike, you're going to want those. These ones here are my personal signature ASR ones, and they're actually made by Zero 3D. You can get them on my website, AdamSandovalRides.com. The last thing I'm going to say about the bike that it could have used a little bit more is going to be the horsepower. I think the horsepower was a little bit low from what I expected from a 111 cubic inch engine. This bike does not like high RPMs. You have to short shift this motorcycle. The horsepower is something that I'm certainly going to probably work on right away on this machine to get it up to where I like it. The engine's strong, it's quiet, it's good. I didn't notice any heat problems. It does have the rear cylinder deactivation, which worked flawlessly. I could barely even tell if it was on or not, other than an icon on here. In the cold and hot temperatures of Arizona, I didn't notice any heat issues that I would personally complain about at all. Just a little bit more top-end horsepower is something I'm going to be looking to try to get out of this motorcycle. Overall, I have to say the 2019 Indian Chieftain Dark Horse exceeded almost all of my expectations. I did not expect to like this motorcycle as much as I honestly did. The more I rode it, the more confident I got in it, and the more fun I had with it. I literally saw myself laughing and smiling inside my helmet at the fun I was having across the twisties of these mountains on this bike. The balance of this motorcycle, the cornering ability of this motorcycle, the suspension and ride of this motorcycle, I have to say it is really well balanced, and the suspension really works. Just a great overall machine. The things that I want to change on it are things that I think I can change in part of making a motorcycle yours. As a whole, the fitment, the finish, the attention to detail, Indian, you all absolutely knocked it out of the park with this motorcycle. I would recommend this motorcycle for anybody to ride if they're interested in touring and having some fun. Especially for the shorter inseam people. If you have a shorter stance, the low ride height, the easy maneuverability is going to be a game changer for you. If you're just learning to ride, this bike is going to perform for you so beautifully. And if you're an expert who wants to go as hard as you can into the corners, you're really going to be blown away by the way this thing grabs and leans down. Alright guys, until the next video, I have a video coming up for you that is going to give a direct comparison on statistics, my opinions, and my thoughts between this and the Harley-Davidson touring models. Watch for it coming up. As usual, remember, if you like motorcycles, if you like adventure, if you like family, follow my channel, Adam Sandoval Rides. Go ahead and click the thumbs up. And to all you Indian riders out there, I now get it. Until the next video.